Hello everyone, it's Cassie and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be, drumroll please, my favorite books or the best books of 2022. It was kind of a rough one, especially with reading, so it was kind of hard to make this list. I don't have a lot of standouts from the year, which is unfortunate. I still have some that I want to talk about, ones that really stuck out in my mind. So I have 8 that we're going to go through. I probably could make it a top 10, but I don't feel as strongly about the other 2, so we're just going to go with the top 8. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and give it a big thumbs up. Both those would mean the absolute world to me. Comment down below what your top books of 2022 were, and if you've read any of the books that I put in my top, let me know what you thought of them. For the most part, there isn't really an order. I think just my top 3 have an order, so the rest of them, there are 2 that I don't have with me. They are back at my mom's house, so a lot of my books are backlist books. Some of them, there's like a couple, I think only 2 of them came out this year. I'm trying to read what's on my shelves, but which is a lot of backlist stuff, so there is that. The first one on this list is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is a romance between the son of the first female president of the United States and a prince of the UK. They start out as kind of enemies. They don't really like each other, have bad impressions of each other. They're kind of forced to be friends after an incident at an event, and that kind of leads into a bit of a romance. Not a bit, it is a romance. Neither of them have came out, so it's kind of a secret about their relationship. We follow the secretiveness, and it's just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun following these characters. They're both super cute, and all the friends around them and siblings were really fun as well. I had like one gripe with this, which was it was maybe a little bit too long and the chapters were too long, because I just hate long chapters. That's a personal thing, but I really enjoyed this book. I think I gave it 5 stars. I don't even think all of these books in this, maybe I did. I was gonna say I don't know if I gave all the books in my top 5 stars, but I might have. I read it pretty early in the year when reading was still going well for me. So next I have Local Woman Missing by Mary Kapika. I really enjoyed this one. I had heard really good things about it for quite a while, and so I wanted to finally get to it. It did not disappoint. It is kind of like a little crazy, but I enjoyed it. We have a girl named Shelby that goes missing not long after Meredith and her six-year-old daughter Delilah vanished just blocks away from where Shelby was last seen. I believe Shelby was pregnant, striking fear into one's peaceful community. 11 years later, one of them returns, and everyone wants to know what happened to her, but no one is prepared for what they'll find. This was like very craziness, but I loved it. I think this is just a solid mystery, and if you've been thinking about reading it, I would totally recommend. It's hard with mysteries. I don't want to give too much away. People are wild, we'll just say that. And I do think about this one often since I've read it. Plus the cover is beautiful. Next we'll go with The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the second book in the Inheritance Games trilogy. I read this recently, and it is one of the only books in the last couple months that I have loved. I loved this. I think it was better than the first one. It was so entertaining. The first one, we follow Avery Grams as she finds out that she is inheriting millions of dollars from a billionaire named Tobias Hawthorne, who is known for his games, his puzzles, his secrets, and all that kind of stuff. No one knows why she inherited the fortune from him. No one can figure out a connection, but that is what her and the family, mostly the 4 grandsons of Tobias, are trying to figure out, and we get to see the lavish life that these type of people live with all their different homes. But we also have the mystery of why she was picked, and so many mysteries within that as they try and figure out the puzzle that Tobias left. There's a bit of a romance in here as well, and if there's one thing I love, it is a mystery with a romance, or a romance with a mystery. it always hits. It just hits every single time, and I love it so much, and this is included. I'm so excited to get to the third one. I'm waiting for it to come out in paperback, so it is a struggle, but I will get to it in 2023 for sure. If you felt not sure about the first one, but kind of intrigued, I would definitely pick up the second one because I really liked it. I liked the first one, but I liked this one even more, and I think most people like this one more than the first one. The next favorite of mine is Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I finally read this. I think about it constantly. I have the second book. I still haven't read it, but I'm going to probably read it in February. This one, we follow Amari as she is trying to figure out what happened to her brother. Her brother disappeared and no one seems to care because they are from the quote-unquote bad part of town, so it is expected. He's probably just doing something bad and he'll come back. He just doesn't want to be found right now. But she is convinced that something happened to him and she is on a mission to figure out what happened and find him. One day there is a suitcase in a closet in her house that is from him and the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs to nominate her to go there to try out for the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, and she thinks this place holds the key to find out what happened to her brother. So she goes there and discovers this whole other world that she had no clue about. It was so good. It was as good as everyone hyped it up to be. So I'm really happy that I finally got to it, and I will be continuing the series, obviously. This is middle grade. It doesn't feel not middle grade, but it doesn't really feel middle grade. It doesn't feel super young at all. So I loved that. I'm glad everyone hyped this up because I don't think I would have just picked it up by myself. I don't even think I would have looked at it because I don't really tend to look at middle grade in general. So I'm glad that this was hyped up because I really enjoyed it, and obviously it ended up on my favorites of the year. So if you've been waiting to pick this up, pick it up. The last book before we get into my top 3 is The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. If you watched me last year, if you watched my favorite books of 2021, you would know my favorite book was In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. That probably still is one of my favorite books that I've ever read. It sticks in my head. I think about it constantly. So when Ashley had her next book come out, I had to pick it up. I still want to read her romance as well, but I had to pick up The Last Housewife. This is a dark mystery about Shay Evans. While her and her friends were in college, they got caught up with this man who was very convincing, very manipulative, and captivating man that seduced them. So after college, only 2 of them make it out. There is a traumatic event that happens while she's in college. Now we are following 8 years later when a similar event happens, and Shay finds out through a podcast. So she teams up with this podcast host in finding out what really happened, which brings her back into this dark world that she was in during college, possibly connected to this man. A dark world of a sex cult type of thing, and it is dark. If you are interested in it but you have some triggers, I would definitely recommend looking up the trigger warnings in this one. They're in the front of the book, but if you can read it. It was so good. There is a bit of a romance in this one as well, and there is a podcast element, which is fun. It is like not the whole book, but there are parts, and it helps you read the book fast because there's transcripts from it as well. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't as I didn't love it as much as In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, but I still loved it. So super good, super good. Now let's get into my top 3. In 3rd place, I have The Counselors by Jessica Goodman. This is a YA mystery set at a camp where we have our main character who is not rich at all, but she goes to this summer camp that is built for rich kids. She gets to go because her parents work there, kind of like Camp Rock. Just makes me think of that every single time. But she goes there. She's been going there for pretty much her whole life. She's met her best friends there. They all live in separate states, towns, whatever. Her friends are rich. But over this last summer, or over this last school year, she has gone through some traumatic stuff, some deep stuff, but she hasn't really told any of her friends, and she's kind of keeping it a secret. When they go back to camp, she still doesn't tell them. Then there is a murder on the camp that is connected to someone she knows from her hometown. She knows that she needs to figure out what happened to him, and she is suspecting everyone for every reason ever. All of her secrets come out as we go along because you can't hold a secret for too long. I really enjoyed this. I know lots of people from the reviews, maybe some people didn't, but I really liked it. I thought it was super fun. I read it on the beach, which was like a perfect way to read it. I read it pretty fast. I really enjoyed it. I had lots of fun with it. So I would totally recommend if it sounds like something to be interested. Love the cover also, come on. It's a good cover. In my second place slot, I don't have the book, but it is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Another one worth the hype for sure. This one we kind of follow two people. We have our main character, Evelyn Hugo, of course, but then we also have a journalist. She is asked to write the story of Evelyn Hugo, and no one has any clue why, even her. She's kind of a low-level journalist, so everyone's a little confused why she was asked to write this story about the elusive Evelyn Hugo. These interviews to write her story, we hear the story of Evelyn Hugo, who was a starlet from, I think, 50s, 60s, and for decades following. She was a huge star, everyone knew her, and she's pretty infamous for her 7 husbands throughout those years. The story is told through the 7 husbands, which I really liked. It made the book go by pretty fast because I would just read like, okay, I'm just gonna read about this chunk about this husband. But then I wanted to keep reading, so I read it really fast. I also read most of this on the beach. She goes through a lot. She struggles through a lot. She is a cutthroat person as well. So I loved it. It was so good, and I was a little scared when I went into it because I had read Malibu Rising before this and I liked it, but I didn't love it. It was good enough. I think I also read Daisy Jones before this one and I liked it again, but didn't love it. I think I might have read them in a different order. So I was a little nervous that I thought she was just going to be like a good author, but not like love her work. But I loved this one. This one's her best that I've read so far. Yeah, and my mom really liked it and she read it before me. So I was hoping that I would also really like it. I definitely want to pick up more by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have most of her backlist now. I just haven't gotten to it, so we will get to that. Hopefully most of it this year. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for. If you watch my channel, this probably won't be very much of a surprise about my favorite book of the year because I do talk about it quite a bit still. You'll know this one is one of my favorite books and you haven't seen it on the list, so it must be my number one. And that is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, aka Crescent City. This was one of the first books that I read in the year. I think maybe like the 5th book that I read in the year, and I loved it. I was so scared to pick this up. I've had this for quite a while before I read it, and you know, she's big, so I was very scared that I wasn't gonna like it, that it was gonna be too much for me. I don't read a lot of fantasy, so I thought this was just not gonna be it, but it was so it that it's number 1 of all the books that I've read in 2022. This one, we follow Bryce, who is half fae, half human. She's kind of a party girl. And then in her city, there are these murders that they think they solved. They were a very big deal. They think they solved them, but flash forward 2 years later, these murders happen again when the person they thought did it is in jail. So they figure maybe they got the wrong person. Bryce is given the task to investigate these murders because of a connection that she has to the case. But it is very dangerous. So she is given the help of a fallen angel called Hunt Athalar. He is supposed to watch her every step and protect her, be her security. And so it all just unravels from there. This world is there's a lot to it. So there's a lot more to it than just this little part in the synopsis. There is a romance, there is so many different types of monsters and creatures and all that kind of stuff. There is politics, but not like gross, annoying politics, because I don't care about politics, but in this one, I did. It's just so good. It's so good, and I get why people like say this is their favorite book ever, because this is one of my favorite books ever now. Have I read the sequel yet? No. It very much intimidates me because I loved this one so much and people aren't loving the second one as much. So it's intimidating, but I will get to it hopefully very soon. I have a vlog where I read this in it, so you can see some of my reactions to the plot twists. It's so good. Have bought A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas now because I loved this one so much. I wanted to read it before, but this one definitely pushed me more into her books. My favorite book, easy peasy. Both this and Evelyn Hugo have sat with me the most, that I think about constantly, because there's so much to each of them that they just sit in my mind rent free. These plus The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Red, White, and Royal Blue are my top 8, did I say? Yeah, 8 books of 2022. It was a interesting reading year, but there are some really amazing books that I read in 2022, aka these ones. So it was successful enough. Hopefully I read more in 2023, because I did have a lot of lulls in 2022 where I wasn't reading. Hopefully I'll be able to at least make a top 10 for 2023. I believe I will be posting a worst books of 2022, because I've got them this year. I've got them. So watch out for that if you're interested at all. So if you like this video, make sure to subscribe and give it a big thumbs up. Both of those mean the absolute world to me. Again, comment down below what your favorite books of 2022 were, and if you've read any of these, let me know what you thought of them as well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.